We're we're live. Welcome to High Vibe Tribe, episode number one. Woohoo! And
Nice.
my buddy Bret Lueder, guest number one. Lots of technical difficulties here, and so bear with me. This is all new. This is a project that was supposed to happen 2 years ago, but due to medical issues and other things, it's been delayed. So here we are at long last, just in time for Bret to tell us about his new book,
Yay.
Ascension, Agents of Ascension, UFO PR, by the one, the only, Bret Lueder.
I like
So,
that. I like,
what's
I
about
like
the
your
book?
special effects.
Having some little issues hearing you here, but at least I can
Okay.
hear you.
You just kind of froze up too, just so you
Uh,
know.
Modern day technology, gotta love it, gotta hate it, all at the same
Love it,
time.
right?
Just like this profound quote that you have in your book here. PR is at the same time both a tool of ascension and conquest. Pretty much sums up technology too, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah. Yeah,
So,
it's
I met Bret about, what is it, 4 years ago at the
I think so.
Mount Shasta event. And
Yep.
we immediately hit it off talking about all the cool esoteric stuff. And as it turns out, Bret is also one of the rare intellects I've met who cozies up to the hard rock and heavy metal aspects of music. So we have that in common too. But we're not here to talk about that today. We're here to talk about UFO PR. So tell us how this book, tell us the process. How did it come to be?
What a journey. I first did this lecture back in 2013 called UFO PR and the Global Struggle for the Control of Human Consciousness. And, as any writer will tell you, an outline is where a book starts usually in some kind of a form of an outline. And it turns out a lecture is a great way to do an outline because you're utilizing that information and getting it out there, kind of doing a trial run, like with a focus group and an audience, and you get to kind of see how people are going to react to it. So, well, that was 2013, and then, as you well know, Mike, life tends to step in certain ways, and you get faced with certain trials and challenges
Think
and
we can all relate
obstacles
to
in
that
life,
one.
right? And hopefully you'll do a show on that at some point because you have a lot of information to offer that you've learned over that your own trials. So I definitely, that's one of the reasons why I like you and respect you, is that your diligence and willingness to study in the face of adversity is incredible, and it's I think that's an example that anyone can riff off of for whatever issue they might have in this earth. It's crazy, right? And so I had my own version of this kind of stuff. And then COVID hit in 2020. And, 7 years after I did the lecture, roughly. And I had been thinking about writing a book about that lecture. And, COVID was a really tough time. And especially in my case, because 2 years before that was the campfire in Paradise, California. So I'm in Chico, California right now. I'm sitting in the warehouse. A buddy of mine, Mike Mitchell, he's the organizer and founder of projectplay.org, that gives soccer balls and soccer equipment and soccer teachings to children in Africa. And he's been doing that about 30 years. And so he's moved back to Chico now, created this amazing place for creativity called the Warehouse. And he's very graciously granted me this time in his space to do my show and shows like yours. So I'm very grateful. Thank you, Mike Mitchell. Um, but so the campfire hits, all the refugees from Paradise come down the hill and occupy Chico. The rents go 3 to 4 times up. There was actually rent wars, which is totally illegal, but it didn't stop landlords from doing it. Like, people were having to bid to get an apartment. So apartment that was like $500 before the fire, all of a sudden was like $1,500 or more. And so it rented me right out. And so here I am in my own town, Chico, and it just started this whole series of hardships. Then when I think I'm getting my feet back on the ground, COVID hits, And it's like, oh my God, right? It's totally tough to find work if you weren't vaccinated. It was tough to travel around anywhere without a mask and social distancing and all the crap that they imposed upon us and many people fell for. Just disappointing. But through all that, I decided, you know what? I've got a lot of time on my hands. It's time to start writing. So in 2020, 21, I started riffing off of this lecture from 2013, and it unfolded. Eventually 5 years later, it took me to actually do the writing, but literally it's 10 plus years in the making. This book that you see before you, it's a labor of love. It's the third book I've written, so I don't have any kids right now. I consider my books right now to be the kids. That's my third little baby. And as they say, third one's the charm, right? And so this has 20 years of my knowledge and studying in great special effects, by the way. And
Thank
I
you.
tried to write this book in such a way that it would appeal to a broader audience because there's many complex issues in there, like the origins of occult magic, or the common person might refer to this as a New World Order conspiracy, and oh, you're a conspiracy theorist and all that. Well, I tried to make sense of all that coming forward back from hundreds of years ago, and in some cases thousands, because I'm going back into the Hollow Earth and traditions of the Hollow Earth around the world, and then pulling together all the common themes that you get from Hollow Earth research and secret society research, occult magic research, politics, and the origins of countries, and the legends and myths that all give rise to where we have our civilization now, including language and law. And basically, what I found out was that there are certain common themes that go back to primordial time, go back to Arya and Shambhala and Agartha and these type of hollow earth or inner earth civilizations that are spoken of around the world. And I began to realize that as a public relations major from Chico State University, I began to realize that these themes were being repeated over time throughout different stories from around the world. Different cultures were talking about, made their own culturally stylized version of the story, but they're the same themes are over and over. High technology, beings with immortality, or at least what appears to us from our perspective to be immortal, tens of thousands of years old kind of beings. High technology in the form of UFOs, giants oftentimes are in these stories. Things like this began to pop out to me, and so I began to realize, you know what? There is a public relations campaign being perpetrated on the surface society from those on the Hollow Earth, and so from there I began to tie UFOs to that. And then I realized, as I pulled back out further, there's a whole hierarchy of beings that are participating in this campaign, trying to gently wake up the surface society towards the idea that there's a greater universe out there and we're not alone, but also towards this idea of our own spiritual growth and ascension. And then I realized there's an opposing hierarchy of beings. And this hierarchy is like spirits, ascended masters, some alien factions, work with some groups on Earth and some groups from inside the Earth, whether it's a crust or inside a hollow Earth, trying to help us to ascend. And that same rank of hierarchy beings are trying to oppose it. And this is where we get modern society where it is today, is this opposing hierarchy of beings is thwarting this move of ascension and set up a whole roadblock, a series of roadblocks, spiritually, physically, legally, emotionally, that are blocking us on multiple levels. So, as I well know, you, Mike, you know, this is why I'm on your show right now, because I know you know all about what I'm talking about. And but you and I, we've had some great conversations. We're preaching to the choir when we start talking to ourselves, even though I have lots of fun doing it. It's time for people like us to let the greater body of the public know about this stuff, to give them a chance to decide, do I want to learn more about myself, themselves, and the world and why I'm in it, all those philosophical questions, who am I and why am I here? Or do they want to, like the Matrix, take the blue pill and go back and enjoy that steak and the 49ers game and pretend like nothing's happening? So
Well,
I feel like people like us are doing our part when we talk about this stuff.
perfect example of that is I just was working with a girl this morning for a client, and I was like, I have to get home by 1 to do a Zoom meeting. And she's like, oh, are you doing a Zoom meeting on your medical crap that you had to deal with last year? And I'm like, no, it's my buddy who's a researcher and he's wrote a book called UFO PR. And she's like, oh wow, is that really a thing? So she was like completely like the term just UFO PR had never
Right.
occurred to her together. So I'm only on page 75, uh, which is roughly maybe a quarter of the way through this. Um, so far, it's an excellent read. You do a great job of weaving together the concepts of both UFOs throughout history and the concepts of PR. And looking at the table of contents, this is quite a diverse array of just like historical, esoteric themes. Is this pretty much all tie in to the UFO aspect, the PR aspect, or is it both the entire way through the whole book?
You can look at this through either portal, through public relations or through UFOs. Either one will get you to where I'm taking the reader by the end of the book. Even you could even look at it through the Hollow Earth because it's the Hollow Earth and my time interviewing Diane Robbins, the ambassador to Telos up in Mount Shasta, California. I was on assignment from UFO Magazine to go interview her, and that's where really this started for me. Um, Interviewing her, and she's supposedly channeling these ascended masters that live in a city. Some say it's in our physical realm, some say it's interdimensional, beneath Mount Shasta, about a mile and a half roughly. Um, there's hundreds of thousands of people that supposedly live down there. They supposedly have a higher vibration than us, and it's through my talks with Diane that I realized that they're trying to wake up humanity ever so slowly because their goal eventually is to come to the surface and reunite with their brothers and sisters, us on the surface, so that we can all ascend together at the same time. So there's different theories on that. Do we all need to be together to ascend, or can we ascend individually and we all get there when we get there, kind of thing? I'm not really sure, but that this particular version of ascension is that we all go together. And I know our friend, dear friend, dearly departed, the late great Rob Potter, up at whose conference where we met 4 years ago. He would say that this is what happened on Venus, is that all the people got together and held hands and walked into the future together, and that like broke the yoke that was on them, which was similar to the yoke that's on us right now, this opposing hierarchy trying to thwart our ascension. So you could look at it from any one of those vantage points: PR, UFOs, or Hollow Earth. You could look at it through occult magic. um, I make the case in the book that public relations, that the usage of stories and words is really the end result. It's a modern, sophisticated version of occult magic. And so I try to get into occult magic and explain what that is, and then lead people through, see how we get to where public relations is. It's really the same thing as a magician trying to cast a spell, using his or her own symbols with their own intentions and acting them out in the physical world, the ritual, quote unquote ritual, intentions, symbols, and rituals. Those are the three tools of manifestation, three tools of magic, three tools of binding, in their own way. So literally, that's what humans are doing all around, all over, is using those three tools in a variety of different ways to move through our daily lives, to manifest desired outcomes in our own individual worlds, but also on different levels, large and small. So yeah, any way you want to look at that through any of those lenses, you're going to get to where I'm going, taking you in the book.
So, given the title in your book is in bold print, UFO, what is your actual take on UFOs? Do you think UFOs are legit alien species that come visit Earth? Do you think they're allegories to spiritual uh, meetings of some sort, crossovers from other dimensions? Do you think it's an algorithm that plants certain ideas into our heads about how to navigate the world? I mean, there's many ways you can look at what a UFO is. Many people claim they've actually seen physical UFOs, but as you and I and other researchers who actually study government patents and all this kind of stuff are well aware of. A lot of these things very well could be, black budget projects that are own corporations and governments, or is it a combination of all the above?
Mike, it's a great question, and it's a great observation, and it's any true seeker on the path is going to come to that point where you just described, and then essentially we all have to answer that for ourselves. But my answer to that when I came to that was that it's all those things. Carl Jung talked about them as being like some kind of a beacon for the subconscious that kind of is drawing us through as we look to it. We're seeking questions. It brings those big philosophical questions into our mind as we look and observe these things in the sky, um, which prompts us to grow and learn again towards ascension. Right? Are they leading us towards ascension? I think some of them are, but then there's some that aren't. Um, and so I have personally seen physical craft. I've seen them in the daytime where the sun's reflecting off of their metallic outside. And so you're like, oh my God, that's the sun reflecting off. It's not a helicopter, it's not a plane. And I've had several of those. But most of the sightings I've had are at night, and they're just lights in the sky. And you can't really tell what those are, at least unless they're up really close. And so it gives you the impression that there's something more than just physical craft going on. But let's just talk about the physical craft for a bit. I do think there are physical craft that are from either other planets or other dimensions or from within the earth that are created by cultures that are not human, or maybe part human, or maybe they're distant relatives of ours that went underground for various reasons. And there's stories out there that chronicle this kind of stuff, like the Shaver mystery, or maybe the Sitchin scenario, or Michael Tessarian's book. In Michael Tessarian's book, Atlantis, Alien Visitation and Genetic Manipulation would be another one that provides a little bit of different scenario. The Gods of Eden by William Bramley. All these books are describing scenarios of about past civilizations on Earth, and either they're leaving the planet or they're going underground, and which kind of leaves the surface open for our civilization to eventually spring up in whatever way that happens. And there's many scenarios for that as well. So UFOs and that high technology with physical craft, I think, have been here since before our modern civilization got here. So, science goes back like 6 or 8 thousand years now to Sumeria, or they're discovering stuff before Sumeria now, like the underground civilization at Quetzalcoatl, or Derinkiyu, or Göbekli Tepe. Now we're looking at stuff that's old now. They're starting to admit that 12, 13,000 years ago, kind of in line with Hancock's fingerprints of the gods. But also at the same time, there's this interdimensional aspect. And I think there's many races of interdimensional beings that have been affecting us, various cultures around the world, including secret societies, different traditions, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, Illuminati, there's hundreds of these different secret societies. The Nazis were really into this stuff. Um, People are dealing with various groups of spirits or different ranks of spirit beings, whether they be good beings, like say angels, or other kinds of God's messengers, quote unquote, or are not so good individuals, beings that have more selfishness in mind, like fallen angels maybe, or lower astral entities, or archons, as the Gnostics talk about. So there's this whole other realm that affects our Earth, our 3D reality, and traditions around the world that speak about this. So I have every reason to believe that this is true, unless someone wants to make the case that every culture around the world that talks about this stuff throughout recorded history is delusional. And I'll stay open to that, because as a researcher, you got to stay open. But I think that's like less than a 1% chance of that happening.
Doesn't
Um,
exactly fit the Occam's razor principle, does it? It's,
no,
it's
not
very,
quite.
very, very unlikely.
Very unlikely. And so, what do these beings? How do they impact our physical reality? And I think they impact us through dreams. They impact us through inspiration. They impact us through uh, apparitions in the external world, like say ghosts or orbs. There's a lot of talk about orbs and what they might be or might not be. And then so we get back to UFOs. And I would say most of the UFOs that I've seen are orbs in some form. Like they're just lights moving in the sky, but they move unlike any other aircraft that we have. But yet I can't reach out and see that it's a physical craft. So I don't really know what those are. But there are traditions around the world that say those are spirits, or at least they can be spirits. I think they can be either one. It just depends on which hierarchy you happen to be viewing at that point, because there's UFOs, I would say, on both sides, the pro-human ascension and the thwart human ascension. Um, and
Well, there must be
so,
some physical uh, alien life out there because so many people claim that their genetics were mixed with aliens, and the theory that all of us indeed are alien hybrids, which does have some biological possibilities, just because we
yes,
have a pair of fused chromosomes, which no other species on Earth has, and it's unexplainable how that happened. There are physical traits that actually suggest that they, at least some extraterrestrial life, or possibly inner Earth life, or wherever it comes from, came here and tinkered with our genetics. Do you find that plausible?
man, I'll tell you, I recommend this for all people getting into this stuff is read the Sitchin scenario, read the 12th planet and the subsequent 7 books. It's an 8-book series called the Earth Chronicle series. And that what that did for me was not only did it open up the idea that what you just described is possible, that God creating us didn't necessarily happen in the way that the Bible says, even the Bible metaphor I think applies. We tend to read to what we think that metaphor means when it could mean a whole bunch of other things. And the Sitchin scenario, where where giants from literally alien humanoids from another planet that's in our solar system that has a really long orbit, 3,600 years, and so we don't know about it, came here and seeded our human race from their own genetic workings. So they suppose, as the story goes, they took a hominid that was on Earth, like Homo erectus, and mixed it with their DNA to create humans. And Sitchin makes a very powerful case. So when I read the Sitchin, the Earth Chronicle series, all 8 books, starting with the 12th planet, I was blown away, right? And then I meet a guy named Michael Tessarian, who wrote the book Atlantis, Alien Visitation, and Genetic Manipulation. And he had a similar but distinctly different scenario about how that happened. And I'm telling you, Mike, it lit me up like a candle. And then I had to, had to go peruse The Gods of Eden by William Bramley, Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods, and his like the next 4 books after that really just blew my head open. There's a book by Brinsley Lepore Trench also, and I forget that name offhand, but he was a great author talking about this stuff. And so, yeah, I think do I know for sure? I don't know for sure. But I think it's highly plausible that this is what happened. Um, there's so many indications like the aliens were here before us. Okay, that's how parents are to children. The parents are there before the children. And so they're ingrained in the reality before the children are born, kind of a thing. And I find that to be eerily similar to human existence, because we don't know a lot about our past, and yet there's these ancient buildings or petroglyphs or iconography inside caves that are thousands of years old that are pointing to that something was here far more advanced than us in our past before we got here. So I think it's highly plausible. And I don't know what to make of those people that say, well, I have Anunnaki DNA, Anunnaki being the aliens from the 12th planet scenario, or I have angelic DNA, or I have gray aliens, or I'm from Syria, I'm from Arcturus. I don't really know what to make of that. I know as a researcher, as a rule, you don't make fun of anybody, because you got to admit you don't really know. And each person explains the reality to themselves. That's their first duty, really, as a human. Who am I and why am I here? And so whatever narrative gets you to open your mind and start searching, I think I'm all for that. It's not up to me to say if it's true or not for somebody else. I just have my own stuff that I have to deal with, because I have myself. I have to figure out who I am and why I'm here in this world, and then be able to navigate this world in a way that I can succeed and be successful. So I think it's highly plausible what you're saying, that we are genetically created by another being, another source. And you know me, I'm a Christian, right? And so I look at the Bible, and I don't think any of this discounts the biblical tradition. I think Adam and Eve is a metaphor that, at very least, it's a metaphor that works to explain. It's one narrative to get a person to open up and start looking and searching, just like the Sitchin scenario, just like Michael Tessarian scenario. Whatever it takes, our brains are computers, right? And a story is a program. And so whatever program you can get inside you that opens you up and starts you down your path to start to learn and answer those philosophical questions, I'm all for.
Speaking of navigating, this is my first Zoom meeting as a host. Is there a way you can tell how much time you have left on here?
Yeah, you'll get a 10-minute notification
You will.
with,
Okay, good.
and then in the upper by where it says recording,
Yes.
right up in that general area, you'll see a 10-minute countdown.
Cool.
And then
Okay, great.
after 1 minute, when it's 1 minute left, it doesn't count down anymore. So I
You got to
learned to
be
have
on it.
my phone. And so I would set a 1 minute timer. As soon as I see that timer go down to
I did
okay,
this,
there
but
you
I
go.
did
So
it
that's
too
going to get
late.
you within the ballpark,
I did it
because
too late.
what I found out was that you have abrupt endings if you don't time it right.
I've seen some of your shows where that happens,
Right.
but it's all good. Um,
That's right.
so you are the only person I've ever heard relate things like the shaver mysteries and some of the science fiction of the tw early 20th century to this field. And it's actually a fascinating idea. And anybody who's been researching this stuff long enough starts to wonder if everything, every movie, every music, every form of art is disclosing something.
Right.
I mean, that's where this takes you if you jump in these rabbit holes long enough. So
Right.
what got you into the shaver uh mysteries in the first place? And how did that interact with your esoteric uh interests?
Okay.
And finally, the book that you have now just published.
Yeah. So I've always had a fascination with the Hollow Earth. When I was a kid, I saw Journey to the Center of the Earth with Pat Boone, and that level of technical special effects at that time was like, you take a bluegill lizard and you film it, and then you superimpose little tiny humans in there and make it look like there's this giant lizard coming at you, right? And that's the kind of Ray Bradbury kind of stuff that we were growing up with, Sinbad and all that stuff.
Just
So
got the 10-minute warning, so just
okay,
FYI.
okay. So Journey to the Center of the Earth with Pat Boone. Darby O'Gillis and the Little People was a Disney movie that really kind of floated my boat when I was a kid. And so I've had the seeds of the Hollow Earth planted in me since I was really young. I don't find that to be a coincidence either. Again, I have to answer these questions for myself. Someone else might think I'm out there by thinking that, but none of this stuff is a coincidence, man. We're all being led by the Spirit to try to wake up gently. This hierarchy of being that's with us, that's trying to get us to achieve this stuff ourselves, which is the only way you can do it. Spiritual growth is done by the individual. Um, I think those were seeds planted in me. So as I started getting into UFOs and stuff, I started peeling off. I didn't think they were related. Subject to the Hollow Earth, books like The Smoky God. David Hatcher Childress just wrote a book called Lost Continents in the Hollow Earth. Because I was interested in Atlantis and Lemuria and Oceania and other lost continents throughout history and cultures that supposedly went with it. And it was in particular, it was David Hatcher Childress's Lost Continents in the Hollow Earth that introduced me to the Shaver mystery. And the Shaver mystery is just incredible. Let's see if I can summarize this really quick. Along the lines of Sitchin or Tessarian or Bramley or Lepore Trench, he's writing quote unquote fiction that he always maintained, Shaver always maintained it was not fiction, but it was billed as fiction. Basically, a race of beings came to Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago. They were giants and they had high technology, and And I'm getting a notice that my internet connection is unstable. So if I'm freezing or anything, let me know.
You are freezing a
So,
little bit, but it's not detrimental to your flow.
okay, great. So these beings lived on the surface of the earth, and they began to notice with their high tech, their high science, that the sun's rays were changing and it was starting to mutate their DNA. So they decided to go underground. Well, it like split their civilization. Half of them went underground to be protected from the rays, and the other half is like, you guys are a bunch of stupid. What are you doing? You know, they're making fun of them. To me, this brings to mind the whole vax and anti-vax crowd today. The vaxxers make fun of the anti-vaxxers, yet I think in the end, you and I both know that the vaxxers are the ones that are going to really pay the price. Well, that's kind of like the shaver mystery. This is one of the many things in this story that is like a metaphor for today. So I think Shaver was really onto something. He's probably channeling something. So so by the time the second faction of those humans, those humanoids came underground, they're already starting to mutate, and that separated them throughout time. So Shaver called let's say the unmutated ones or the less mutated ones the the Taros, and then the ones that became more mutated were the Daros. Well, then the certain groups of the Taros said, well, we can't live underground forever, so they left the earth and then left a lot of their technology buried in deep caves. And so the Daros and then the Taros that were left are battling, and the Taros, for the most part, try to protect humanity as we rose up on the surface after they left. And the Daros are hunting out this technology left in these caverns and then using it on the surface society to try to create wars and famine and strife and violence and overstimulated sexual activity. And part of this technology, they're called stim rays, and they can shoot these rays and create this kind of a thing. Now we're seeing this in our own technology now. If you listen to Sabrina Wallace, like I know you do, and others, um, they're talking about they can beam us with the satellite and put visions in our head. And so we're starting to recreate this stuff now. So it's not so back in 1940 to 44, when Shaver was writing for Amazing Stories magazines, a fiction science fiction magazine, this seemed so far out of the realm of possibility. But I'm telling you, this guy Shaver's genius. And so when I read most of Shaver's stuff, I haven't read all of it, but I've read quite a bit of his stories. And then Richard Toronto's Shavertron afterwards. I read most of those issues. Some by the Hollow Earth Hassle by DJ Crenshaw, and then no, Hollow Earth Insider by DJ Crenshaw, and then Hollow Earth Hassle's Mary Martin and Talavesque, who are pivotal in the whole Dulce base coming out. That's chapter 17 in my book. That's an incredible chapter on the Dulce base. And so I noticed the same themes in Shaver's stories. He was talking about giants, ancient civilization that was here before ours, high technology. He didn't have UFOs necessarily, but he had rocket ships and spaceships, and then high tech that was underground. And so that was really the first story that I noticed this. There was other stories that I'd read talking about this. Edidorfa might be another one. Um, and you see this like in the Matrix is another underground. People don't see this Matrix as an underground type of snare, but it is. Zion was underground. They built a civilization underground with the machines on top. And so, but again, it was certain factions go underground and another faction takes over on top. Same scenario as Shaver's describing. And so, Shaver described a language called Mantong. And Shaver claimed you could see remnants of that language in our English language, words that end in the suffix dero. He says, refer to this group of negative beings underground that are deformed, that hate humanity, that try to create squalor on the earth so they could feed off of it. And Shaver maintained that this is where the globe got its global traditions of demons, was from these Deros. And I could see how that could be possible. So the Shaver mystery for me was huge. It really blew my head open to the possibilities. And me being a public relations major, I couldn't help but notice the repeat of themes over time, not just through the Shaver mysteries, but through many different stories and cultures, origin stories from throughout time. So
So we got about 3 minutes left. I'm
Okay.
clearly going to have to upgrade because it's like just barely getting started. I feel like
40 minutes goes quick. It does.
very quick. Tell everybody where they can see your excellent podcasts and where they can buy your book. And I'll, of course, leave the links below once I publish this.
Wonderful. So, Adventures Unlimited Press right now, I'm actually thrilled that it's like come full circle. Here I started my journey basically. There's a couple books before maybe, but Lost Continents and the Hollow Earth by uh, David Hatcher Childress is really what started me going. And now this book that you're seeing there, Agents of Ascension, UFO PR, is now in David Hatcher Childress's adventuresunlimitedpress.com catalog. Quite quite an honor for me. And it's just funny how things work out. I never would have dreamed that that would be possible. So you can go to adventuresunlimitedpress.com and you can buy the book there, or you could hit me up on Facebook and Bret Lueder, Bret with one T, Lueder's Lueder, and I'd be happy to mail it to you. It's $30 plus $6 shipping. It's 310 pages, I think, 310, 320 pages, and it's well worth the money, man. There's just no other book really like it. The complete stuff that I describe, and especially for individual cases like Antarctica or the Dulce Base or Mount Shasta, I go in depth
So far, I'm impressed.
in a way that I appreciate that very much. So yeah, and then my podcast, The Bret Lueder Show, is on Bitchute and Rumble, and I share those links on Facebook and LinkedIn and Telegram, and also Jeff Rennell's etalk.tv is a young and up and coming portal for many different shows. I'd recommend going to check out etalk.tv. So that's how you can check me out. Or you can shoot me an email at beelu1212 at yahoo.com. That's BEELU 1212 at yahoo.com. And Mike, it's an honor to be your first guest. So
It's an honor to have
thank
you,
you.
sir. I've been talking about this for a long time, finally making it happen.
I'm
So,
really happy for you,
and
man.
I hope you come back. I'm sure you will. And well, thank you for joining episode number one of the High Vibe Tribe. And this is just the beginning. So, wishing you all a wonderful day and even better tomorrow. Cheers,
Thanks,
buddy.
guys. Bye bye.
Bye.